y'all, how's it going? So in this one, what I want to do, this one might be a little bit of a longer one. What I want to do is you can see that I have another page here. So this is an actual athlete profile, so you can scroll between the different athletes and you can see what scores they actually have. This will involve us both creating a new endpoint in fastapi, something we're familiar with doing, and then also introducing the concept of a multi-page app in Streamlit. Okay, that's the plan, so let's go dive into the code. The first thing to do here is let's create a models file. And what this is going to serve us is we're going to actually put our models in here. So I'll show you first. On routes.py we had this athlete create model in here, which is good. We definitely want pydantic models. But the way to make it a little bit more organized is we're going to have it in this models file here, and we're just going to call it athlete. Save that, and that works. And then on routes here, what we'll do is we'll from models import athlete. That's right, but no, we're not going to use athlete create right now. And then wherever it says athlete create, so that's only two places, so that'll just be, oops. And okay. Copilot changed that. That's good. We also don't need pydantic or typing in here right now. Save that. Okay, that should be good. Now we have a centralized model which we can import into here when we create our new endpoint. Okay, so now that we have our model organized into the correct file, we can go ahead and use our agents to create the new endpoint for us and see what it comes up with, I guess. So I have this prompt on my clipboard right now, and I'll include a description of it as well. Basically, we're going to create a new get route for the athlete ID. So /API/athlete and then /athlete ID, where athlete ID is what the user is going to input, and we'll retrieve that then from the database with a new method that will take the integer of the ID, and then we send that back to the route, and I want to validate that with pydantic, and then I want to be able to return that into a JSON format. So we want to also add to the context just to make sure that has everything. So we'll add the route, the model, and the database. I think it might find it anyway, but I like to just include it for good measure. And make sure that you're on the planning agent right now when you say that, and then press send and hope for the best. Okay, so it didn't take too long to come back. So this is what it went through. I expanded the chat window so that we can see more. So it looked through a bunch of the files, and it's saying as a heading what it's going to do. Let's see here. It looked through some more files and then kind of creates an implementation plan. So it sees that the database has 16 columns. The current model, this is kind of interesting. It's used for post validation, which is true. That's kind of what we used it for, and it doesn't include athlete ID. Let me actually just check that really quickly. Because I might be right about that. Okay. Yeah, we never included it, so It'll be interesting to see what it actually does in the implementation step. That's the thing about AI, it's always interesting. It's different every single time. Then it found that we're using pytest with the test routes file that it has here. So it's saying that, um, okay, so it is planning to create a new response model. That's fine. I'll be curious to see what it finds. Um, it will have 404 handling, which is nice. Uh, an athlete response model. Okay, there. So, okay, cool. So I do like that. That is kind of the recommended thing to do in fastapi, even though it seems like a little pedantic, I guess, to do that in pydantec. But you would have a separate class for your create versus your post because they will be slightly different, and then it handles all your validation from there. So it is recommended. So that'd be a good idea. Then it says the query that it's going to do. It's going to be simple. It'll use a parameterized query, which is good for us. Gives an overview of the pattern. It all looks pretty good right now. So, I think as we saw in a previous video, fastapi just puts out 422 when you don't receive the expected types. So, that's to be expected. And then it'll put in some tests. I have had trouble with it where the instructions clearly say to write 2 tests, and it ends up still writing like 9. It writes one for every use case, so might have to tune that a little bit. Gives links to the documentation, that's fine. Actually, the response model, let me click on that. So essentially this link is telling us that the recommended way to have a type annotation for the response would be to use the response model parameter, which is a parameter directly on the decorator that you use. Huh. I just noticed that the sample has a portal gun and a plumbus, which I think is kind of funny. So anyway, it looks like it's gonna do that, which should be fine. But this is something that I didn't already know about in Pydantic. So I guess that's the nice thing about kind of using this with AI is if you're curious, it'll give you the links and you can just research it from there. And here's the testing plan. So one will return athlete ID. If you put in a number like 9999, whatever it is, all across the board, that's 404, assuming it's not there, which it shouldn't be. And ABC, that's going to return a 422, so that's the status code we were talking about before. Since we're validating integer, it'll give a failing number. So now let's go on to create the failing test. So it'll put in the prompt for us. It'll put us on the tester, and so it will have the context that it had before. So we don't need to re-add all the files that we had before. So let's go off and send it. So this is how it ended up putting in the new athlete response. Is it has the actual response that only has the ID here, but then it's also inheriting the athlete class, which means that all these fields that we have, since it's inheriting, it automatically gets added onto the response. So that's kind of a neat way of doing it, I guess. So taking a look at the actual test now, we have a success here. So this is what I would expect. We have the database.get athlete call, which obviously it hasn't made yet, but it's mocking that right now. So it's mocking this whole return value. So we're not actually going to DuckDB during this test. We are just mocking this call. Then we have that, so it's going to the actual endpoint, and it's asserting that it's working from that database call. It's asserting that everything's equal. That makes sense. We're not, there's not that much logic on the route. It's really just passing everything from the database. Now, this is kind of interesting. It's kind of what I don't like for the database. It's focusing on one edge case, just the not found edge case, and it's asserting that that gives a 404, which is fine, but I would like it to do a little bit more. So I'm just going to highlight this code here to put it in the context and then prompt it and just say, please use more edge cases in this one test. Now it went ahead and made a test for more edge cases. So all 9s results in a 404, 0, -1, those all give 404s. A max 32-bit integer, which honestly I don't think that we need that one. Honestly, we don't really need these ones either. We can just have one for not found, which is what I want. And then having one, we'll take that one out too. And then this is the one I want to keep. So if you pass a string, it gives a 422. If you pass a decimal, it gives a 422. I think that's fine to have. Database error. So it's saying that if the database gives an exception, which it does with this dot side effect method here, then we'll have the client return a 500, which a 500 is an internal server error. That's a good one to have. So we'll save that. Oh, the only thing that I don't like here is it says test get athlete not found, which isn't, that's not accurate anymore. It should be negative cases or something like actually failed is fine to match this other test which says success. So we'll go ahead and keep that, and then it is prompting us to run pytest, which is fine. We'll do that. Okay. So it fails the test successfully, which I am good with now. So now we can move on to have it actually make the implementation. And it finished up pretty quickly, which is expected. It's not a very long implementation. So it made a database file, which that's good. It does have parameterized SQL here. So you can see we have this question mark here, which this gets filled in with whatever the second parameter is. So that's good. So we want that. We're returning the athlete response too. Or importing it rather. That's good. And then so here is the actual thing. It does have the response model parameter on the decorator, which is good. I like the doc string, gives some helpful information. It raises up 404 if the athlete is none. If there's an exception, it'll give a 500, which is fine. Other than that, it'll just return the athlete, which is fine. Now let's go ahead and run the test. Okay, all the tests pass, but it tried to do some linting at the end, and it found that rough wasn't installed. So I'm just going to go ahead and install that in the backend. So I'm using UV add rough and then the --dev flag at the end, which is, that means that it'll get put into the development group, so separate from production. So go ahead and install that. It's very quick now. If we go to pyproject.tom, we'll notice in the dev dependency group, that's where rough got put in. So I'll just prompt it now that we have rough installed now, so it can try it again. Once we installed rough, then it prompted us a couple more times. It did end up formatting a file with rough, so it wanted to run the test again right after that, just in case, which is probably a little overcautious, but still fine to have. So the implementation is complete. It gives us a little summary of what was done, which we went through. It has the new model in it, and now the new route and everything. So we can go ahead and we can have it explain what it did in here. So one odd thing that it's doing is it's thanking me for some reason for doing this, which I don't really know why, but so it did that, and it just, we don't need to go through everything since we've done that throughout this video, but it gives a neat little summary of just everything that was done between every agent, not just like what the last one is. So yeah, everything looks pretty good. So let's go on to actually using this in the next video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.